Hello.
What's up, Alyssa? What's up,
How are
Sean?
you?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Give it another minute here. Let's see. What's up, Eric?
Yeah, how's it going?
Good. How about yourself?
Good. So,
Give it another minute and then I'm going to get going. Doing that 48, Eric? Yeah?
yeah, I have the mindset, so I'll get through.
Eat something good tonight and then get to bed.
Yeah. No, I don't want to do it, but I'm doing it. Whatever.
Use it as a kickstart. You're going to feel good in the morning.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'll get started. See if anybody else joins us. Okay, I'm just going to mute you guys. Okay. All right, guys. So kind of a review, some new stuff in here as well, reinforce what you're doing. Some nutrition stuff in this as well, because that's questions we get some at a time. What you should be focused on is the micronutrients. I know I talked to you, Eric, about this last week, but the micronutrients. Don't worry about the macronutrients. Don't worry about how many carbs is in this, how many protein, how many fat. It's micro, okay? Things like zinc, iodine, B vitamins, but that's what you're looking at, right? So in the foods you're eating, stuff that mainly came from the ground, that's going to be much more loaded with good micronutrients, okay, than your animal flesh. And if you look at like colored sea salt's got about 72 to 75 micronutrients within it. So it's more than just sodium. So that's really good stuff. And if you're ever in doubt what to eat, okay, and you're trying to eat good, 5 ingredients or less. Okay. If you look at the can and it's got 20 ingredients, your liver's got to break all that stuff down. So 5 ingredients or less, which again fits the bill with stuff that grew from the ground, or even your animal protein. Okay. Put you guys down here. So if you guys are tired, okay, so low energy, or you feel like you need more sleep, the things that you would want to look at: increase your sodium. That is critical. Okay, that's critical. Sean, I know we talked on the phone a couple weeks ago. I'm going to put a screenshot up of something from the liver book, but he even talks in there about when we're dehydrated. So remember, the way you hydrate is through sodium. It's not through water. Water full of salt. But it'll appear in your brain as the same thing as hunger. So if we're not drinking the juice, if we're slacking on that, that's when people say, oh, I got to eat. I got to eat. Just drink more juice. You're going to be fine. Okay. You drink more juice. So anyway, if you're tired, increase your salt. Iodine, which is why I have the cranberry juice up here. I think I put a link up about this a while ago. It's got to be pure cranberry juice. Should be bitter, loaded with iodine. And then you also, of course, got to look at sleep. Okay. We always got to address sleep. If you're hungry, increase your sleep. Remember, lack of sleep will decrease leptin levels, which is going to drive up hunger, and it increases the ghrelin levels. Ghrelin's another hunger hormone. So you could be following everything to a T, but if you're not getting enough sleep, hunger is going to skyrocket. Okay. Want to look at fiber? Again, the foods that came from the earth, loaded with fiber, and sodium, potassium, your juice. So that's something really going to help with satiety and the signal in your brain to tell you that you don't need to eat. So iodine, again, if you pick up this cranberry juice, all it takes is about 4 ounces of that. That's all I do, besides my 48-hour fasting day. I do 4 ounces with dinner, loaded with iodine. Okay, it's an excellent source of iodine. Stimulates your thyroid, so that's a big part of metabolism. Boosts your immune system, so especially now, cranberry juice, vitamin D, should be pumping that stuff. And it helps fight cancer. So again, talk about micronutrients. This thing is loaded with them. I get an 8-pack on Amazon. You can find pure cranberry juice at the store. It's a little hard to find sometimes. But iodine will help rid toxins from the body. Okay, the same receptors where the iodine goes is where you're going to get stuff like fluoride, chlorine, and bromide. So when iodine goes into those receptors, gives the boot to the other stuff, you might actually feel sick the first couple times you start doing it with the detox going on, but that's another good thing. So fruit, great stimulant of the liver to get the liver active. Remember, the liver's arguably the most important organ in the body. Okay, it's right up there with your brain and your heart. Fruit's going to stimulate the liver, improves thyroid function, okay, and actually raises metabolism. There's a reason I want you guys eating that fruit first. Eat a nice big bowl of fruit right out the gate, okay? You should almost, if you're doing it right, I know, Sean, you're not a huge fan of fruit, but if you're eating enough fruit and you sit there after you eat your fruit, you should almost in your head be like, okay, I'm actually full. Like I won't have to eat if I'm not making the choice to eat. Like it should be that much fruit. Okay, so usually a bowl of it is a good serving size. So fiber, some things I do for that besides what I'm eating in the meal. Baby carrots, okay, at the beginning of the meal with the cranberry juice. And fiber will bind to toxins and get them out of the body. Remember, toxins are stored in your fat cells. The more fat we have to lose, the more toxic we are. Okay? And that goes back to when we did the liver cleanse. Our liver is the main organ that gets rid of toxins out of the body. So all this stuff, you're starting to see how it ties together. But fiber is really good at getting rid of toxins from the body as well. So when you have your animal meat, again, you don't have to be vegetarian. You just cut down on it. You are getting B vitamins from your meat, zinc, magnesium. Okay, I still like to supplement with those 2 things. Hemi-iron is a very big predictor of heart disease. Okay, it's loaded in animal flesh, animal meat. Homocysteine, which I had in one of the other presentations, is 40 times greater predictor of heart disease than cholesterol. Okay, homocysteine is only found in animal meat. So that's the reason really when I started really diving back into the nutrition stuff a couple of years ago. Again, I came from background eating a lot of meat, and I still love it, but just be mindful of it. So the hemi-iron, you can see too, speeds up the oxidation of LDL. So when it's oxidized, when cholesterol is oxidized, okay, that's when it's a problem. When there's inflammation with it, that's when there's a problem. Cholesterol by itself is not a problem. It's when you add inflammation to it, that's when it becomes a problem. And the C-reactive protein, whenever you get your blood work, C-reactive protein is a good marker of inflammation, overall inflammation in the body. This is another good thing you can start putting in at the beginning of the meal. It's very soothing on the stomach, okay? There are clients that I have that let's say they struggle with the 48. Now, technically it's not a fast, but I'll say, okay, I have a cup or 2 of chicken stock tonight or whatever. And it does the trick. Okay, it's loaded with sodium, very, very, very minimal in calories, but that is something you could do if need be. So this is the one I buy from Costco. So let's talk about inflammation. What you're doing with the fasting is really a big part of it. In the insulin resistance, okay, we're healing that. We want to be more insulin sensitive, but with that goes hand in hand is inflammation. We want to reduce inflammation. Okay. Now, I think it was on the one of the very first check-ins, Scott, who's in our group, talked about, in case you weren't on it, how he's been having this shoulder and neck pain for 20 years. He did 248s and he was able to actually have more range of motion in his head than he's had in 2 decades. It's reduced inflammation. All right. And I hear stories like that all the time. Again, you can look at it through blood work too, but things that are going to impact inflammation, sleep, quality sleep will make inflammation go down. Lack of sleep makes inflammation go up. Stress. Okay, so the main stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, we want them at mild levels, constant levels, like we're trying to do with fasting. But when it's chronic stress and we can't turn this off, then it leads to inflammation. That's where you get the visceral fat. That's the fat that surrounds your organs. Okay, it's that hard belly fat. Diet's going to impact inflammation, refined sugar, and high acidity. So when you're talking about diet with this stuff, white sugar, okay, use it as a treat, use it on your cheat day when you're having cookies and all that type of stuff. And high acidity. So again, go back to protein. Proteins are amino acids. Think of the word acid, acidic. A lot of animal protein will make you more acidic. So these are the main ways we're impacting inflammation. To give you a little background on cholesterol, the Framingham studies back in the 40s. So Ansel Keys is the guy, the doctor that ran these studies. They had an agenda when they set out, right? So this was coming into big pharma, but they had an agenda. So first of all, they took cholesterol, and it comes in like a toothpaste looking tube. All right, that's how they would administer it. They decided they're going to administer it to rabbits. First problem with that, rabbits are herbivores. They consume 0 cholesterol in their normal diet. So now you're giving cholesterol to these animals that don't have to process cholesterol. And they left the top off of the caps. Now, a lot of people think that was intentional. What happens when you leave the top off the cap? It oxidized. Right? Cholesterol in the presence of oxidation is a problem. They're giving it to these rabbits and start saying, "Whoa, their heart, all the blood markers are going all over the place. Cholesterol is dangerous, bad for you." It was a completely flawed study, but from that, pharmaceutical took that, ran with it, and it's become this gigantic industry that it is as far as the cholesterol. You know, there's books on this cholesterol myth, the truth about cholesterol. There's an optimal range for every substance in your body, including cholesterol. Cholesterol is a precursor to all hormone production, all sex hormone production. So you need cholesterol. Your brain functions largely off cholesterol. Your brain is very rich in cholesterol. One of the things when you're on cholesterol medication, brain function declines, okay? Much more likely to develop dementia when you're on this stuff long term. You're going to get joint pain and muscle pain when you're on cholesterol medication. It's bad news. It's poison for your body. So you should always be like, how do I get off of this stuff? So a good example for you guys, LDL is typically termed a bad cholesterol, even though, again, it's not bad by itself. But if you had somebody that had low LDL, so typically doctors would say that's a good thing, and somebody that had high LDL, okay? So let's say the person with high LDL was pretty healthy though. They're getting a lot of sunlight, they're exercising, they're eating clean, eating healthy, but they have high LDL. And then you have a smoker that's got low LDL. But a smoker is constantly throwing fuel on the fire. Okay, they're adding inflammation and oxidation to the cholesterol. The smoker with low LDL is much greater risk of heart disease than the healthy person that has high LDL. Okay, so it's always in the presence of inflammation. You got to look at what cholesterol is doing. So this is just a picture of that visceral fat I mentioned. So visceral fat, we have it on the machine at Hillsborough. It gives you a readout of that on the in-body, but it's the fat that surrounds your organs. So to review why your body lays that down, it's a stress response. Okay, it's an inflammation response. Everything, go back to the mind map stuff I've taught you guys. Everything your brain and your body does is for survival. Everything it does. Okay, it functions with survival first and foremost. So if we have chronic stress, and again, maybe that's induced by that list of inflammation type stuff I had, doesn't matter how you're bringing it on, but your body will say, man, I'm under attack. I've got this threat coming at me. So what it's going to do, it really jacks up your cortisol. That sends a signal, hey, pack fat down around the organs to protect them from this incoming threat, even though most of the time it's up here. It's not an actual physical threat. So your body packs fat down around the organs to protect them from this thing that it perceives as a physical threat, but it's not necessarily a physical threat. It's a very dangerous type of fat to have, okay? So when people are above a 10 on the visceral fat, when we look at the measurement, chance for type 2 diabetes, heart attack, stroke, all these things are greatly elevated. Okay. Sugar and animal meat both cause inflammation at the cellular level, okay? Inflammation at the cellular level. That means insulin's not going to function properly, all right? So if your bulk of your diet, let's say, was refined carbohydrates or sweets and animal protein, you're going to develop pretty bad insulin resistance, okay? When you have insulin resistance, review what that is, and that's basically what you're healing with your fasting as far as the physical goes. You have to produce more and more and more insulin for a set amount of food over time. Insulin is going to clear the sugar out of the blood. It's going to get it to the cells, whether that's fat cells or muscular cells. But over time, if we have to keep producing more and more and more of that, that's not a good thing. So fasting, we want to limit that, limit the insulin output, get back to insulin sensitivity. When you're insulin resistant, that you're basically pre-diabetic, and that's how you become diabetic. As I said before, insulin and inflammation are linked. You can't separate the two of them. If one is high, the other is high. So this is actually a really good book, Proteinaholic, if you're interested in more about the science behind the dangers of animal meat. Okay, I think there's over 3,000 peer-reviewed studies in this. It's a pretty interesting read, though. I mean, the studies are all in the back, but it opened my eyes a lot. So just replacing 5% of the saturated fats. Remember, you get saturated fat from animal flesh, from animals. That's where you get saturated fat from. With fructose. So fructose is one of the main carbohydrate sources, sugar sources in fruit. You reduce your chance for developing diabetes by 30%. So you pull out a little animal protein, put in a little fruit, huge impact on your health. You see increased meat consumption by just half a serving. So a serving size of meat is about 4 ounces. So just 2 ounces a day, okay, increases your risk of developing diabetes by 48%. This is stuff you're not going to read anywhere else. Okay, you can become very insulin resistant through eating animal protein. And all these fake fitness experts that try to tell you, you got to keep your carbs low, you got to keep your carbs low, high animal protein. They're doing the exact opposite thing that they think they're doing, that they're prescribing to you, okay? Animal protein actually causes a very high insulin secretion compared to carbs. So remember, people tell you to keep carbs low because of the insulin response. Animal protein has a much greater impact than good carbohydrates do on your insulin level. This is Bill. Bill is a member here in Hillsboro. He's done phenomenal with the fasting, really changed his life, and his body. So what should you be doing, right? We got a couple weeks left, but some type of fasting. Does it have to be every day? No. Is it going to be more effective if it's every day in some sort? Yes. But OMAD, the 1 meal a day, is a really good plan for a lot of people, majority of the week, especially if it's during the work week and you've got a regular routine. And I tell you guys, it gets easier the longer you do it. It gets easier and easier to a point where it's just like it's a habit. You don't have to think about it. You just know. Reducing inflammation, insulin resistance healing itself, eat a lot of plant-based carbs. Remember, that's not just greens. Okay, plant-based does not mean low carb. Sodium, so the juice. So we've talked somewhat about this. This is another good book, The Salt Fix. All this doctor does is study salt. That's sodium. He's the go-to resource for this. He has studies in there where they've given people up to 18,000 milligrams. It's 18 grams of sodium a day, which is like, you can't even fathom how much that is. with zero increase in blood pressure. But all these doctors tell you, oh, you got to stay low salt because of my blood pressure. Water follows sodium, okay? Now, let me tell you, and I have it right there in the next line. When you have low sodium, you drastically increase your heart rate, which is far more harmful to your long-term health than maybe a couple points going up on your blood pressure. In only a very few small percent of the cases that I know what causes increased blood pressure. Most of the time it's a stress response. It has nothing to do with sodium, okay? African Americans are more sensitive to sodium, okay? But in large part, this is not backed by any science, keeping sodium low. It's more of a marketing thing. If you have low sodium, lower energy. So I talked about that when I talked about the juice, okay? Every cell in your body has a sodium potassium pump, constantly changing sodium potassium. That's the biggest part of your basal metabolic rate are those little pumps. Every cell in your body has one. But if you're low in sodium, this can be sluggish. It's going to make you crave sugar and refined carbs. If you really take your juice seriously, you're going to notice that those cravings go way down. It's not to say you're not going to enjoy them when you have them, but the cravings will go way down. Weight gain, right? So he has a lot of case studies in this book where the only thing he changed was increasing people's sodium, and their body dramatically changes. I always tell people, even if you're not fasting, you should be drinking juice. You should be getting that sodium in. It's that important, okay? It's going to lead to insulin resistance when you have low sodium. That might have nothing to do with anything else you're eating. Low sodium will increase insulin resistance. Internal starvation. So what is that? Internal starvation. When your body's not, sodium is so important for your body. When your body doesn't get enough of it, it'll hoard what you're taking in. So when you first increase sodium, what's the one thing you hear? I'm going to retain water retention. You do that because your body is trying to hold on to it. Once it adjusts, it'll pee it out. Water follows sodium. That's why you get that temporary water retention. But that's not that tells you we're very deficient in sodium. Okay, so when your body isn't getting enough of it, it starts holding on to all these nutrients. Right? The insulin resistance goes up, which says hold on to what you got. So you could be eating plenty of food like a lot of obese people do, but they're internally starved, meaning they're not getting the micronutrients they need from the food. The cells are hoarding it. They're not releasing it out into the body to be used. So that's a very interesting thing. And higher acidity. Sodium is alkaline, okay? You want to keep acidity low within the body. Improves your sleep, energy we talked about, mental focus, big benefit up here. Sexual performance. So again, having low sodium, not that anybody in this group I think is at that age, but trying to have kids, but it can make you infertile when you have low sodium. And fitness performance. It can increase your strength endurance by up to 20% when you get sodium levels. Think about that. I mean, that is off the charts. That is all insane. And a lot of the pro sports teams now are actually monitoring their athletes with different electrodes and whatnot. However much sodium they lose, especially when they're starting to train in the summer, like a lot of these NFL teams, they make them put that back in before they even leave the facility. And they have tablets and whatnot to do that. But 3.5 to 5 grams a day, okay, is good for most people. If you're really sweating, like in the summer, or Eric, you're out there running a lot in the summer, you should up that, okay? Up that. Your body will tell you. It'll tell you how much you need. So this is just a little something extra for you guys. That's me and Matt Fury. So Matt's the one that taught me the backwards walking. He's taught me a lot of good stuff. Something he taught me was the 4 keys to youth. Laughing releases certain hormones in your brain. It's good for the soul. So laughing is one of the keys to youth. Walking. Walking is the only form of exercise that's going to lower your stress hormones. Right? If you can't hit the weights, just get out there and walk. That's fine. Walking is very good for your body. It gets the blood flow, but it's low stress. Squatting, the ability to squat down. I'm not talking about squatting with weight. I'm talking about the ability to get down into a squat. Making sure you have proper hip and knee mobility. One of the first things to go in the physical human body when we age is your hips, right? If you go to a grocery store and you said, okay, pick out 10 people, I bet you maybe one of them could get down into a full squat position, okay? And then fasting. You know, and this actually comes from Matt's really big into Eastern philosophy. His wife is Chinese. He goes to China a lot. He's got a house over there. But these are actually this is a Chinese thing, the 4 keys to youth. But I think it's interesting that fasting's in there as well. Remember, you got to review why you're doing this. If it's just about the weight loss, that's just scratching the surface, but that's not the real reason you're doing it. Yeah, you want to lose weight, but what does that lead to? Remember that 5, 6, 7 exercise. It's you got to anchor yourself to something to form a habit. There's got to be an emotional component to it. Otherwise, the brain doesn't place importance upon it. It won't make it a habit. So you got to think of, how is this making me a better person? What was the reason I wanted to do? Was it more energy so I can do better at work, so I can spend more time with the kid? Whatever it is, go back and address that. Okay, that'll get you back on track. Your mind creates your reality, guys. So your mind is going to create how difficult this is, or how easy it is, or how much you're embracing it. Diet strategy. So a lot of people come, they especially now, right? New Year's resolutions, they have the I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 30 pounds. It doesn't matter what you want to do. That's coming out from the wrong place. It will not last. You can look at everybody that does New Year's resolutions. It won't last. You have to. So we've had people like this where their doctor tells them, their wife tells them, their husband tells her, not going to work. Okay, it's got to be a choice. I will. That's the choice. Remember, to form a habit, it's got to be your choice. Freedom of choice is a huge component to forming a habit. If it's forced upon you, it ain't going to work. And once we wrap up in a couple of weeks, I'll make sure we meet individually, and you guys will be the ones deciding. I'll guide you. What are you going to do going forward? Okay, what are you going to do going forward? But it's got to be your choice. It's not me telling you, hey, you got to do the black version. You got to do. It's okay. What fits for your lifestyle? What's doable right now? And then you can build upon that. 3 keys to success. Remember, you're choosing this. So Eric, this 48 you're doing, this is your choice. Okay, remember the talk we had last week. It's your choice, which is big. If it's your choice, that puts the power back in your court. Okay. Appreciate your feast. Okay, your nightly feast and your cheat days, but realize it's not, and it's okay if you feel like that still, but it's not just an excuse to gorge yourself. Right? That'll change over time if that's still where you're at. But that'll change over time the longer you do this, where you really get good at listening to, okay, am I full? Am I just forcing this down because it's in front of me? Remember the 3 joys of food I talked about, I think last week. You should be enjoy after the meal. That's one of the 3 joys. If you gorge yourself, binge eat, you're not going to be enjoy after the meal. Okay, it's actually creating a stress response in your body. It's not about what you're doing. It's about who you're being. Are you committed to this? Do you have the I will mindset? So tonight, right, just kind of explaining more of why you're doing what you're doing. And I'll explain that a lot of different ways, but it's got to be you connecting the dots. It's got to be your brain making the connection to why you're doing what you're doing. The goal, from my perspective for you guys, is to teach you enough in this Panda so you own this. You know it. You know why you're doing what you're doing. You know how to tweak it, but I'll always be here as a resource too, but you'll know how to manipulate it yourself. It's not something that, oh man, stop working. What do I do? I want you guys to be able to have that skill set. Mastery is about prediction and response. So let's say you're going to master this. And you know you struggle Monday nights. Let's say, okay, so prediction, I'm going to struggle Monday night because I'm going to be thinking about food. Well, if you know that ahead of time, what's the response going to be? Okay, that's where you got to give yourself some type of other routine on those nights. You know, I've told you guys this before too. Monday nights, I look forward to it. If the boys are still up, I'll put them to bed. I'll get in the hot tub. I'll read. I'll do some meditation. I'll read some more when I get out. But I have something to look forward to. Like I look forward to Monday nights, even though I'm not eating. It's like, man, I get to study all this. I get another hour to study or whatever I'm going to do. And I get a really deep sleep, you know, when I do the 48. You guys might notice that too. But it's stuff you got to say, okay, how are you predicting what's going to come up, and how do you make that a positive? And how do you formulate the appropriate response? The big driving factor, that's your 5, 6, 7. That's attention. Where's your attention? What's your intention? And then repetition. Where your attention goes, your energy flows, and you'll get results based upon that. So you guys have been pretty consistent week to week with tuning in and figuring out what's going on. But just to review, these are the 12 steps of Mind Bat, right? The action you're taking is going to lead to change. Change leads to habit. Habit leads to transformation. Transformation is when the change becomes permanent. Okay, and then eventually you feel that you get to something, whatever it is in life, and you've got it. You start over. You go back to the beginning because you're going to pick a new challenge. That's how the brain grows. You're gonna go back to the beginning, and you got to go through the whole process again as you try to master something new. It might be a completely different field, right? Think if you were playing two sports, like you were a really good basketball player, and now you want to get into golf. Right? Think about Michael Jordan with golf. He's mastered basketball, but he's somewhere in here with golf. Okay. So threw a lot at you guys tonight. Do we have any questions? So unmute yourself if you do. Okay. If we don't, I'm probably actually going to post your, I know Thursday's New Year's Eve. I'll post your check-in. I didn't get to post it last week as far as the form tomorrow. So we have plenty of time to fill that out, and I could get you guys something made just to answer questions. Then we got a couple more weeks, so I'll be getting out the exit interview schedule soon, so you guys can fill that out and let me know when you want to meet. All right, but keep up the good work. Try to stick with your 48 tonight if that's the choice you made. Make it through. You're going to be happy you did it in the morning, okay? All right, you guys have a good night.
Thanks. See you later.
Later.